Today is part 2 of the art critique, and we're going to be going over 3 young artists and dissecting their work. And in today's video, we're going to go into a deep dive on how we can help them and also potentially help you at home. So let's get started. First up is Miriam, who has a question about dynamic poses. Now, if you're not familiar with what dynamic poses is, if you're not familiar with what dynamic posing is, or poses, if you're not familiar with what a dynamic pose is, think of a comic book character, how their hands are jutted out, soaring through the sky, or you can see them in a crushing punched blow. It gives a large rhythm and movement to the piece rather than just a stoic profile like you would see in a model. She also has a question about color theory and seems to have a problem with color theory, but when we look at some of the work that she sent, I really don't see any problems with color theory. There are 2 main color theories that you can research. There's the traditional red, blue, green that we've all known and grown up with. And then there's the newer version, which is the cyan, magenta, and yellow. And there's 2 different theories on why one might be better than the other. So rather than going into an incredible deep dive, I would say start with research there that can better help you understand it. Maybe you'll find one that works better for you. Me, I'm a traditionalist. I'll always be a traditionalist, but I do see the value in other theories. The biggest tip that I can give you, and this goes for any artist, if you have a problem understanding posing or how to situate a character, first, thumbnail it. But secondly, if you really want an in-depth character, Google it. I know, it's the angel saying, just Google it, just Google it. I digress. You want to Google it. You want to look at any character, whether it's a runway model, superhero, etc. Maybe it's just someone sitting in a certain position. Doesn't matter. You can pull up hundreds of images and then quickly do rough sketches of gesture drawings that will help you then get better and better at figuring out how to pose and situate a character. If you're trying to make your own comic or your own manga or whatever, then you want to really harness a thumbnail off of a gesture drawing, and that will help you get much, much better. Overall, your line art is really, really nice. The one thing that I can suggest, and for more intermediate artists, I would suggest this as well, is give your lines variance. Don't just keep the same straight, squiggly lines throughout the piece. It doesn't help. It can actually make the thing look very static and illustrated. If you want more movement out of a character, you want more organic movement, then you want to have varied line weight. And that can be achieved very simply just by using, when you're inking, a very flexible pen or even a brush to give you that nice squiggly weighted line. As a side note, when you do the line weight, you traditionally want to have the thicker side on the shadow side and the thinner side on where the light's going to hit. That will help you give a nice 3-dimensional balance as well. And lastly, shading. It can definitely help give the character a nice rotation to it, so you can take the cloth of a character and bend it. Even if it's a static character, all of a sudden you put creases and folds, it gives the intonation, and with some shading can give even more movement to a character. I hope that answers all your questions, and so now we're going to move along to the next artist. The next piece of artwork is by a young artist named Aries, who created his own Has-Been Hotel / Haluva boss character. Did I just say Haluva? I'm sorry. Hell of a boss character. I'm thinking of Sami Zayn. I'm WWE. I'm that guy. I watch WWE, okay? Sue me. In the email, he wrote, his name is Aries. He is a 14-year-old gay and transmasculine and was adopted by Blitzo when he was 10. He is part imp and part sinner. That's such an adorable backstory. Busy Pop, please! Make this a character! I mean, it's such a great character, and if you know the stories of Has-Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss, this just kind of fits, and I could see Blitzo, because of Luna, just adopting somebody else. It would be really cute and endearing. The overall concept for the character is really nice and really well thought out, though I would suggest that when you start to design your own characters, you really want to look at how the characters look in the comics, the shows, the movies. When we look at Moxie and Millie, for example, because they are part imp, they have a lot of pointed lines. In fact, even all the Has-Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss characters, they have a lot of pointed lines. It's very stylized. It's a very unique concept. Also, something that I really want to point out is, though you gave him very unique style in baggy clothes, when we look at someone who had a very similar appeal, like Octavia, even though she's a very thin character, and when you look at some of the imp characters, they're kind of small and short, they don't really wear baggy clothes. All the clothes kind of fit them almost to a T. Like, you wouldn't see any variation from where their skin meets and where their clothes end. It's kind of a very cartoon thing in general. So to see it might be a little bit different. You might not necessarily represent or resonate with Hello Boss and Haluva Boss. Oh my god, Haluva Boss again! Damn you, Sami Zayn! What have you done to me?
How sweet it is! Haluva kick!
One of the things that I really do love that you actually harken back to Octavia is the concept of like the headphones. It does give this character very unique presence. We do feel like it belongs in this world. Another thing that I always stress to almost everyone is do make sure that you're planning out your drawings, because if you're just not setting up a head, a shoulders, and a body, then it can kind of just look a little disjointed. Colors are really spot on. I would just suggest that do thumbnail and do some gesture drawings to kind of get how you want the character to look, because this will also help you get your proportions down, because the head does seem slightly bigger than what the traditional imp, but that's because you did make a very unique character. So this is just kind of nitpicking stuff. Sometimes it could just be a little bit hard to read because you're creating a very unique character, so I don't know what the skill level of and efficacy level of how well you are doing, but I can tell there is a lot of originality. I can tell that there's a lot of creativity here. Also, and this is the last thing, it'll kind of help wrap everything up, if cartooning is your thing, I would suggest that you look at other forms of cartooning, whether it's Fairly Odd Parents, Simpsons, Disney. Give yourself a wide variety of skills. You know, a Marvel artist or a DC artist, don't just say they only draw that. They're going to be influenced by manga artists, by traditional artists. They draw their influence from everywhere, but they also do find their influences within other artists in their fields. So I would suggest that you do branch yourself out into other forms of art, and then you'll find an aesthetic that is intrinsic to you. Lastly, we have Zoe, who created an elven wizardly kind of character, which I actually really like. It's got a nice little anime aesthetic to it, which is just right up my alley. I do like the coloring and the highlights, although I would suggest that you get yourself a color swatch paper. It really helps. I'm not a fan of seeing little color swatches. I know it's probably just a study, a doodle, etc. It really would help. It's just a scrap piece of paper. That's why I never throw paper away. If it's a project I hate, it becomes scrap paper. It helps. You want to test out a Posca, boom, scrap paper. I do love the anime style eyes, though I do wish that it was black in the middle. That's just for me. Eyes traditionally do have a black, but that probably just was an aesthetic. That was probably just a conscious choice that you made. I don't know off the top of my head. Do look at like what a lot of even anime elven characters, they all have a black iris and then the color around, a black pupil and then a colored iris. Again, this is another great showing of complementary colors. When you look at this thing, it's nice, it's bold, it's solid, it's punched in. Proportions are all right, but they can get a little bit wonky because you have that at a 3/4 pose rather than head on or completely turned to the side. So something that I would suggest is when you're mapping out your characters to make sure that everything is plotted out, make sure you use a Loomis method or a method that works for you when drawing, so that way when your characters are turned in a contrapposto pose or the 3/4 pose, you have the characters proportioned out, because one eye looks a little bit off than the other eye. With the 3/4 pose and the proportions, you can see that the chin should come down significantly further than it actually is. Most people seem to think that the chin doesn't come down as far. It really comes down a lot farther than you think. This is something that will help everybody, is practice what you're weakest at. When I was younger, I hid my hands in my characters all the time. I just didn't know how to draw hands. They usually came out very big and very clunky or way too skinny, and I never proportioned them out correctly. If you want to get better fundamentally as an artist, I would always suggest take what you're weakest at, and that's what you're drawing intro sessions before you really draw anything, or whenever you're just going to doodle really quick, that's what you should doodle. It'll help you get exponentially faster at doing art. Hands in general, because A, they're always adaptable, they're always right there, and you can just draw it and shape it however you want. Look at the little fingers. You can just go whoop, and you can, yeah, I'm insane. What can I say? But this is how I probably should be. It's more myself. So Zoe, I know you had some questions about complementary colors, but as you can see from the previous video, we kind of went over the complementary colors, but you also have a very good grasp of colors. The last thing I can say to both is that concentrate and learn on also levels of saturation of color, which is just how heavy a color is or how light a color is. Once again, these are very in-depth, advanced theories, so depending upon your age, you might not be able to grasp all the terms, but that's okay if you take the time to research and learn, because going over concepts like saturation and value, basically how light or dark a color is, because you can have a very dark red or you can have a very light red, etc. All of these things are something that you would probably both need to research, and that is something that's going to help you too with color theory, because you can have a very vibrant yellow and you can have a very dull yellow, like a lemon yellow is a very dull greenish yellow, or you can have a very bright sunflower yellow. Two completely different things. Give off two different moods too. See, this color theory has a lot of nuance to it, because when you look at colors, they can be bright and vibrant, or dark and moody, or somehow twisted and surreal, and all of these things coalesce into a new kind of thought process when creating a piece of art. And that just about wraps things up. Thank you all so much once again for participating. 3 wonderfully talented artists. I can't thank you enough for participating, and I might do a round 3 of this. I'll see how things go in the near future. Let's see how this video rolls out, and then thank you all so much. Do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you like the content. It lets the channel know, it lets YouTube know that you really like the content. So thank you so much all for stopping by, and I'll see you all in the next video. Brennan, say hi to the viewers. Brennan, say hi! They like to say hi! Subscribe for Brennan!